Hi everyone, welcome back to Ms. Bertazzoni's Reading Corner. Today we're going to be reading 3 more stories from Sideways Stories from the Wayside School by Louis Sachar. And the first story we're going to be reading is about Leslie. As you can see, Leslie's standing there, or actually kind of sitting there, with a magnifying glass looking at her toes. Now, you may remember that Leslie's the young girl who has long pigtails. So, let's get started. Leslie had 5 fingers on each hand and 5 toes on each foot. For each hand, she had an arm, and for each foot, she had a leg. She was a very lucky girl, and she had 2 lovely, long, brown pigtails that reached all the way down to her waist. When Mrs. Jules asked a question, Leslie could raise one of her hands. When Leslie was adding, she could count on her fingers. When Paul pulled one of her pigtails, she could kick him with one foot while standing on the other. But Leslie had one problem. She didn't know what to do with her toes. She had 10 adorable little toes and nothing to do with them. As far as she could tell, they served no useful purpose. Suck your toes. That's what I do, said Sherry. But Leslie's foot wouldn't reach her mouth. Well, that's all toes are good for, said Sherry. She put her foot in her mouth and went to sleep. Remember, Sherry's the one who slept during class all the time and fell out the window. No, thought Leslie, they must be good for something. They just have to be. During recess, she asked Dana, Dana, what do you do with your toes? I scratch the back of my legs, said Dana. First, I scratch my left leg with my right foot, and then I scratch my right leg with my left foot. But my legs don't itch, said Leslie. That's good, said Dana. In that case, you can scratch my legs. With your help, I can scratch both legs at the same time. No, never mind, said Leslie. She walked up behind Louis, the yard teacher, and hopped on his shoulders. Louis, said Leslie, I don't know what to do with my toes. Louis tugged her foot. Yeah, that's a serious problem, he said. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take them off your hands for you, or rather, your feet. Just cut them off and give them to me. What? Said Leslie. You don't want them. So I'll take them, said Louis. You won't have to worry about them ever again. No, said Leslie. I'll give them to Miss Mush, said Louis. She can make little hot dogs out of them. Miss Mush was the lunch teacher. No, I'm not going to give my toes away, said Leslie. All right, said Louis. I'll give you a nickel apiece for them. No, you can't have them, said Leslie. Why not? Louis asked. They're no good to you anyhow, and think of all you can buy for 50 cents. The bell rang. I'll think it over, said Leslie. She ran back to class. Mrs. Jules, said Leslie, I don't see any reason for keeping my toes. Oh, Leslie, I'm sure there are lots of good reasons, said Mrs. Jules. Well, I can't think of any. My legs don't itch, and I can't get my foot in my mouth. Louis offered me a nickel apiece for them, and it seems to me like a good deal. But I wanted to check with you first. I think Louis was pulling your leg, said Mrs. Jules. No, said Leslie. He was pulling my toes. What would he want with your toes? Asked Mrs. Jules. I don't know, said Leslie. But if he's willing to give me 5 cents apiece for them, then I'm going to take him up on it. That's 50 cents. At lunch, Leslie walked up to Louis. Okay, Louis, she said, you can have my toes for a nickel apiece. That'll be 50 cents. Not so fast, said Louis. Let me look at them first. Leslie took off her shoes. Yes, said Louis. The big ones are good, and the next ones next to them. But I'm not sure about the rest. The most I'll give you for the rest of your toes is 3 cents apiece. Leslie was furious. 3 cents each? You told me 5 at recess. I'll give you 5 cents for the big ones. But just look at that scrawny little runt of a toe in the end there. You're lucky to be getting even 3 cents for it. I think you're getting a darn good deal. I happen to like that toe, said Leslie. Fine then, said Louis. Keep it. I'll just take the 2 big toes and we'll call it square. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a dime. Nothing doing, said Leslie. These toes are sold as a set. It's either all 10 for 50 cents or no deal. What am I going to do with just 8 toes? Then forget it, said Louis. I'm not going to give you a nickel for those scrawny little end toes. Fine, said Leslie. No deal. My toes will still be here if you change your mind. She turned and walked toward the hopscotch area. Wait a second, Louis called. I'll give you $1 each for your pigtails. Leslie turned around and looked at him with fiery eyes. Cut my hair, she exclaimed. Are you crazy? All right, so our next story, remember this one, is story 19. It's the story about Miss Zarzis. There is no Miss Zarzis. There is no 19th story. Sorry. Okay. Now, story 20, Kathy. You can see Kathy's being hit with a ball. It's her own fault. Everything that happens in this story, unfortunately, is Kathy's own fault. All right, Kathy. Kathy doesn't like you. She doesn't know you, but she still doesn't like you. She thinks you are stupid. In fact, she thinks you are the stupidest person she doesn't know. What do you think of that? She also thinks you're ugly. As a matter of fact, she thinks you are the ugliest person she doesn't know. And she doesn't know a lot of people. She doesn't like the people she knows either. She doesn't like anyone in Mrs. Jules's class. She did like one member of the class. She liked Sammy. She thought he was funny. Sammy, if you remember, was a dead rat. But Kathy has good reasons for not liking any of the children she knows. She doesn't like DJ because he smiles too much. And she doesn't like John because he can't stand on his head. Kathy once had a cat named Skunks. She liked Skunks, but she was afraid that Skunks would run away. You have nothing to worry about, Kathy, said Mrs. Jules. Skunks won't run away. Just be nice to him and feed him and pet him, and he won't run away. He may go out and play, but he'll always come back. No, you're wrong, Mrs. Jules, said Kathy. What do you know? He'll run away. So Kathy kept Skunks locked up in her closet at home. She never let him out, and sometimes she even forgot to feed him. One day, while Kathy was looking for her other shoe, Skunks ran out of the closet and never came back. You said he would come back, Mrs. Jules, said Kathy. He never came back. You were wrong. I was right. That's why Kathy didn't like Mrs. Jules. Then there was the time that Damien tried to teach Kathy how to play catch. Damien said, when I throw you the ball, Kathy, try to catch it. I can't catch it, said Kathy. I'll just get hurt. You won't get hurt, Damien insisted. Just watch the ball. But Kathy knew she'd get hurt, so she closed her eyes. The ball hit her on the cheek. It hurt. Kathy began to cry. You were wrong, she said. I was right. That was why Kathy didn't like Damien. Allison believes that if you're nice to someone, then they'll be nice to you. So one day, she brought Kathy a cookie. I don't want your cookie, said Kathy. It probably tastes terrible. Allison said, "No, it's very good. I made it myself." Kathy said, "If you made it, it must be terrible. You can't cook." So Kathy just put the cookie in her desk along with her pencils, crayons, and books. 3 weeks later, Kathy was hungry. "All right, Allison," she said, "I'll try your cookie." She took it out of her desk. It was covered with dust. She bit it. It was hard and tasted terrible. "See," said Kathy, "I was right." That was why Kathy didn't like Allison. Yes, Kathy had very good reasons for not liking anybody she knew. Of course, you know as well as I do that she's bringing this all on herself. But she also has a good reason for not liking you. And she doesn't even know you. Her reason is this: she knows that if you ever met her, you wouldn't like her. You don't like Kathy, do you? See? She was right. It's funny how a person can be right all the time and still be wrong. All right. Our final story for today is about Ron. All right, and there's Ron with the kickball, and in the background is Louis, the yard teacher. Ron had curly hair and little feet. "I want to play kickball," he said. "You can't play," said Terrence. "Get out of here," said Dee Dee. "Scram," said Jason. "I want to play kickball," said Ron. "Well, you're not playing," said Terrence. "Beat it." Ron stomped across the playground to the hopscotch area. Jenny was playing hopscotch with Louis. Jenny was on 9. Louis was still on 4, but it was his turn. "I want to play kickball," Ron said. "So go play kickball," said Louis. "Terrence won't let me play," said Ron. Louis walked with Ron to the kickball field. "Hey, what about our hopscotch game?" Jenny asked. "You won," said Louis. "I just beat Louis in hopscotch," Jenny announced. Leslie, Rondi, and Allison flocked around her. "Hey, Louis," Damien shouted. "Do you want to play kickball?" "All right," said Louis. "Ron and I will both play." "No," said Terrence. "Ron isn't playing." "Anyone who wants to play can play," said Louis. "No, he can't," said Terrence. "It's my ball." "It isn't your ball," said Louis. "You gave it to me," said Terrence. "I gave it to you to share," said Louis. "If you can't share it, you can't have it." "Oh, all right," said Terrence, "but I get to pitch." "Ron and I will stand everybody," Louis announced. "All right," said Jason. "We'll kill them." "We'll smash them," said Myron. "We'll see," said Louis. Ron pitched, and Louis played the other 8 positions. 20 minutes later, they finally got their 3 outs. Or I was going to say the 3rd out. The score was 21-0. Ron was up first. "Infield in," shouted Damien. Everybody stood within 10 feet of home plate. "All right, Ron," Louis shouted. "Kick it over their heads." Ron kicked the ball only 3.5 feet. Todd picked it up and threw him out. Louis was up. Everybody ran back to the edge of the outfield. Still, Louis kicked the ball over their heads for a home run. Everybody ran all the way back in again for Ron's up. He kicked the ball only 2 feet. Dee Dee tagged him out. Louis kicked another home run. Ron then kicked the ball a foot and tripped over it on the way to first base. 3 outs. Ron and Louis held the other team to only 5 runs in the next inning, but that was because the bell rang. Lunch was over. Louis and Ron lost 26-2. Ron had a wonderful time. The next day, Ron said, I want to play kickball. You can't play, said Terrence. Get out of here, said Jason. Scram, said Dee Dee. I want to play kickball, Ron told Louis. Louis walked with them to the kickball field. Ron and I will stand all of you. Everybody liked the teams. Ron pitched while Louis played the other 8 positions. This time, they lost 57-2. After the game, Louis took Ron aside. Listen, Ron, he said. Why do you always want to play kickball? You can't kick. You can't field. You can't even run to first base. You just get smashed every game. Hey now, wait a second, said Ron. Don't go blaming it all on me. You're half the team too, you know. And with that, he poked Louis in the arm. And he poked a heck of a lot harder than he kicked. All right, that is it for today. Our next session, we're going to read about the 3 Erics, Allison, and Damien. And then we'll have another 5 or 6 stories left to finish the book. So you guys have a wonderful couple of days, and I will be back reading to you soon. It's been fun. Bye-bye.